Hi, and welcome everybody to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin of rbwins.com. His name is Jesse Shule of jesseshule.com. We were scheduled to be joined by Mr. Sean Higgs. Those of you who have been following his show knows he's a regular, and we do a lot of shows together, not only me and him, but me, him, and Jesse. And unfortunately, Sean's dad passed away this morning. So I hope you join us in offering his family all the deepest condolences. I'm a Christian man, so I pray for his soul. And I also more pray for the family to find strength and love through this whole ordeal. Never easy losing a loved one, Jesse, even if he was in poor health like he was, and you expect it, it's still a loss. I know Sean was very close to his dad. And, when you see a pillar of strength reduced to poor health the way he was, it's awfully tough. So it's a mixed emotion. You don't want to see him suffer anymore, but by the same token, you don't want to see him go either. So anyway, Jesse, anything you want to add to that before we get to talking about sports?
I think your words were quite graceful. There's not much I can add, but yeah, my thoughts and prayers are with Sean and his family. And Sean's obviously a pretty tough guy to be even showing up for work this week. Really, I was surprised that he still shows up, and he's done a pretty good job of holding it together. And we both wish him the best and his family the best, I'm sure.
Absolutely. This is the life of a sports handicapper that you can't call in sick, and you just hope that when situations like this occur, you have strong people around you in business that make this tough time a little easier, and certainly not putting on any stress on an individual to rush back to work anytime soon. But knowing Sean, he'll be back at it within the next week or so. But until then, we wish him nothing but the best. All right. We're going to cover 3 games today in the NCAA tournament. Again, we're recording on Wednesday, the 22nd, and these games will all take place on Friday, the 24th. Jesse will be covering the Alabama and San Diego State game. I'll be looking at Texas and Xavier. Sean was scheduled to look at Miami and Houston, but me and Jesse will chime in with our opinions on that game, something different. But, we have to improvise and we have to adjust, and that's what we're going to do. Jesse, we were talking about all the low-scoring games, so I did a search on my database yesterday to find out that since the NCAA tournament began, there's been 52 games played. 35 of them have gone under the total and 17 over. That's around 68% to the under through the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. One thing, though, and I always say it, when you see a cluster of whether favorites covering a lot, underdogs covering a lot, overs or unders with a lopsided margin like we're seeing right now, 35 and 17 to the under, it's a matter of time before things start to turn. That's just the nature of the business. In terms of totals and point spreads. If it were that easy and there was a common, if it was 68% over the last 20 years, everybody'd be rich right now because you'd be betting every game under. It's not that easy. And we saw a turn on Sunday, Jesse, where 6 of the 8 games went over the total. And just your thoughts in general on what we just saw or what we've seen so far.
Well, Ross, I think I mentioned it in our last show. It's the bookmaker's job to make adjustments when people start riding trends like this. And I think we saw some line movement on Sunday, from the opening lines to the closing lines, even the numbers that you're quoting, that 6 of the 8 games went under. That would be the case on the closing line, but certainly the Kansas State game, which I had a bet on the under, opened at 146.5, was hovering around the 145 mark. I believe they finished with 144 points, and that it was bet all the way down to 143. So it ended up counting as an under in those stats. But if you were taking advantage of the superior lines earlier in the day or the night before, you still would have got it. And that brings me to another story that I can tell you. I believe it was about 6 to 8 years ago. The Detroit Tigers went over the total in 18 straight games. And this guy bet the over in like 16 or 17 of those games. Covers, which I used to work for, wrote an article about it. And they asked me, how could you just continue to ride that? And what I told them was the total kept on being listed at 8 to 8.5. And it should have been 10, in my opinion. Once they've gone over 6, 7, 8 games in a row, it's got to creep up to 9, and the bookmakers did not make any adjustments. I guess the Detroit Tigers aren't the biggest draw in Major League Baseball, and certainly weren't at the time. And but yeah, that was a nice run that I cashed in on, and that's how I treat these trends. Is if the bookmakers aren't going to make adjustments, I will try and ride the wave.
Yeah, and once you get to 3 straight winners on overs on Detroit, for example, I'm being hypothetical, you have nothing to lose by keep riding it. So, I mean, bottom line is once they go under, you stop. But as soon as you start when you find a trend like that and you don't find the bookmakers are, odds makers, I should say, are making the necessary adjustments in your mind, then certainly if you hit a few in a row, why not continue to chase that over? And as soon as it hits an under, then you stop, but and you got nothing to lose, and you're playing with house money. So, yeah, I mean, look at 2 of the games we're playing. We're going to discuss today on Friday's games. In San Diego State, for example, they've gone under the total in 10 straight games, and Texas has gone under the total in 7 straight. So, it's something to keep in mind there. That's not to say that I'm gonna either one of us is gonna take the under. I don't know what's on Jesse's mind yet. We don't discuss who we're taking before we get on the air. But the San Diego State and Alabama game. Let's start with that. That's an intriguing matchup to me. I just think San Diego State does have the athleticism and the physicality to stay with Alabama. But more importantly, what do you think on this game, Jesse, since it's the one that's been assigned to you?
Well, we did speak about the totals, and we did speak about the line value, and I did see this game open at 138 on the total, and it intrigued me. I was debating whether I was going to hit that under or not, and the decision was made for me when the line dropped a little bit. I saw the line went, so there was no more 138s available, so 137s, 136 and a half. So
Jesse, put your mic a little closer to you, pal. So you're breaking up a little bit. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
I think I had my mouth pointing the wrong way as well, what it was. But anyways, yeah, I see some money coming in on the under here, and that's affected the line. So I no longer see value at the current total. I do like San Diego State as the underdog. I think they're capable of hanging it with Alabama. The Aztecs 12-1 in their last 13 games overall. The one loss by just 6 points on the road at Boise State. This is a team that could play defense. They could score. They could rebound. Alabama has had an easy go in the tournament so far. They haven't really been tested. This is going to be their toughest test so far. And I think it's a whole lot of points, and I will take the underdog here.
Yeah, it's a healthy number at 7.5, whatever you can get it at. But I agree with you. I'm really impressed with the San Diego State team. Boy, oh boy, you look. By the way, Alabama's gone under in 5 of their last 6 as well. So this is actually. I don't know if it's a high total for San Diego State, but it's certainly a low total for Alabama compared to the rest of the year. But one thing about Alabama, they score a lot of points, Jesse, but they're vastly underrated defensively. I mean, you look at their defensive numbers over their last 6 or 7 games. I think they've held 6 or 7 opponents in a row to less than 40% shooting. So that's excellent defense. And I know specifically with San Diego State, they've held their last 4 opponents to less than 40% shooting. So something's got to give there. San Diego State doesn't exactly like to play at a high tempo. Alabama does, a contrast in style there. But I agree with Jesse. I like the San Diego State Aztecs plus the points here. I'm not going to call for an outright upset. Would it shock me if that occurred? Absolutely not. Let's not forget, folks, San Diego State comes from the Mountain West Conference, and a lot of you out there, well, I'll take an SEC, the cream of the crop in the SEC over a Mountain West team anytime. And you know, case in point is it's not that easy. You look at the Big 12 right now, for example, it was supposed to be the premier conference in America. And here they are, with only 2 of their 7 teams left, and it's just the Sweet 16. So Big 10, 1 of their 8 teams left. Mountain West Conference had 4 teams in the NCAA tournament this year, which is extremely high for a mid-major conference. Anyway, I'm going to take a look at the Texas and Xavier game. I mentioned Texas, 7-0 to the under in their last 7. Xavier, they're a hard team for me to figure out, especially since they lost their big man, Fremantle. You think they started to slide a little bit after losing him, but then Xavier, let me make sure I'm saying that right. Xavier, we have some alumni out there that has corrected me on several times and everybody else. Xavier is one of those teams, like I said, hard to put my finger on. But, you know, here they are in the Sweet 16. They just get it done in Big East. 3 teams left in the Sweet 16, so Xavier being one of them. But I'm going to look at the total here. You know, Texas has shot 50% or better in each of their last 3 games. That would be the first 2 games of the tournament, as well as the Big 12 championship game against Kansas, who's a very good defensive team. Xavier, on the other hand, they've scored 78 points or more in 6 of their last 8. Texas has scored 71 points or more in 8 of their last 10. Xavier has gone 10-3 to the over in non-conference games this year. And those 13 games averaged 163.4 points scored per contest. I know the trends are the unders here, and I know how good Texas is defensively, but both of these teams can score as well. And that number of 148.5, I thought was just jumped out at me a little bit, considering all the unders and how good defensively Texas is. But I'm going to go Texas Xavier here over the total of 148.5, Jesse.
Well, Ross, I have to agree to disagree based on the fact that, yeah, the number is a little high for me. I did mention that 6 of the 8 Sweet 16 matchups last season went under 140. I was able to watch the Xavier Pitt game, and Xavier blew the doors off in the first half. High-scoring first half. It looked like it was going to sail over. But the pace really slowed in the second half, and it came right down to the wire with free throws in the final seconds to push the number over. I think Texas is going to be better defensively than Pitt was. And, you know, this time of year, these kind of key matchups, key games, I believe I've seen lower scores in the Sweet 16, Final Four, Elite 8. And with a number this high, I feel comfortable going under.
Yeah, so there you go. I like Texas Xavier over 148.5. Jesse respectfully agrees to disagree, and that's okay, folks. You know what I mean? If we agreed on everything all the time, again, our official pick will be mine because it was a game that was assigned to me. And then reviewing again, Jesse also, he likes San Diego State plus the 7.5 against Alabama. Let's take a look at Houston and Miami. This is a game that our buddy Sean Higgs was going to cover, but we're going to do our best to fill his shoes in this spot. So right now, we're looking at Houston, a 7-point favorite, and a total 138.5. Jesse, what's your thoughts on this game?
Well, I think that everybody's been waiting for Miami to fail all year long. I think you're a little late to the party. Regular season champs in the ACC. They just keep on winning games. What more can you ask of them? I've only bet on one underdog in the tournament so far. I've ranted on how I prefer to bet favorites and underdogs, especially when I feel like everybody wants to bet underdogs. I feel that affects the point spreads, and there's less value to be had by doing what everybody else wants to do. But I did bet on Auburn as a dog against Houston. They were up 41-31 at halftime. Uh, Houston was supposed to have a couple injuries to Sasser and Shed, their leading scorer and their starting point guard. Um, and that didn't pan out. Both those players played and played very well. It remains to be seen if there's any problem there. They both looked pretty good against Auburn, but Miami can score. They've got the coach. They've been there before. They made the Elite Eight last year, and they're getting 7 points. Give me the dog here.
Yeah, I can't blame you for that whatsoever. Yeah, this Houston team, everybody talk about waiting for the shoe to drop or whatever the phrase is. Houston is a team with those injuries that you just referred to, and these guys are gutting it out. I mean, look, this is especially the point guard there. He is a 4-year starter, and he's going to gut it out. I mean, this is near the end of his career now, and he's going to give it one last gasp effort to win a national championship. So, yeah, I mean, interesting side notes here. Both teams went over the total in their last games, which is ironic because we're talking about 35 and 17 to the under so far. Both of these teams went over in their previous game, and just an algorithm here that Houston has gone 5-0 to the under in their last 5, following an over in their previous game, and none of those games exceeded 136 points scored. On the other hand, Miami has also gone under the total in their last 5, following an over in their previous game. But those combined scores were a bit higher, but their totals are always a bit higher. So say what you will about that. If I had to do anything here on the total, I would lean toward going under the total of 138.5. I think Houston will dictate the pace of this game. They'll slow Miami down. Their offensive rebounding prowess wears teams down a little bit, but I'm not so sure that'll be the case. But in any event, they'll have they don't play at a high tempo, and with their offensive rebounding prowess, they'll have extended possession. So I'm going to take a small chance here and go Houston and Miami under the total of 138.5. So reviewing again, Jesse likes San Diego State plus 7.5 against Alabama. I'm going to take Texas Xavier over the total of 148.5. Jesse likes the other side of that. He likes the under. And in terms of this game here, Jesse likes Miami plus the 7 over Houston, and I'm going to take Houston and Miami under 138.5. There you have it, folks. You have 4 picks in all, actually, for the tournament on Friday, and we've been sailing along here. Our last 2 videos with me, Jesse, and Sean. We've gone 5-1. We had a real good week last week as a whole, as a team, along with Doug Upstone as well. Picking games against the spread here. And folks, that takes me to this. I know a lot of you Arkansas fans have jumped in with some commentary, and that's great, man. I really, really admire the passion of the Arkansas fan base. And just because I picked against your team, and Jesse did the other day, it reflects nothing on respect, folks. And yeah, some of you chimed in. Don't you know they went to the Elite Eight the last 2 years? Because stuff like that. Those are talking points. Okay, our focus, folks, is on picking winners against the spread. We're not always going to be right, but if you followed us over the last few years, we're a lot more right than wrong. Okay, so when we pick against a team, it's basically because we like them against the spread. That doesn't mean we have disrespect for that other team or the fan base. And it just goes to see, some guy called it a Miami show yesterday. And I get what he's saying, because I took called it a UConn show yesterday because I took UConn over Arkansas. Jesse, I don't know, you could speak to this, but whenever we take a team over another team, there's good reason for why we feel that way. So the nature of our analysis is always going to center more on the team that we're taking, and then we'll bring up some flaws on the other team. And people are, you're taking this way too much out of context, folks. It's a sports betting show. It's not sports talk radio. Any
Ross,
thoughts? Yeah.
I can't afford to be a fan. I can't afford to
No.
play favorites. I can't afford to cheer for one team in particular. Yeah. If you want to know why I bet Kansas, look at the score after 20 minutes. Look at the score after 30 minutes. That's why I bet Kansas. And in the final 10 minutes, did Arkansas come raging back and play the game of their lives? They did. And congrats to the Arkansas faithful. They played great. They look like they have a shot to go deep into this tournament, and all the power to them. But it's not like Kansas had no chance either. It was a rather short line, and it could have easily gone the other way.
And Coach Musselman over at Arkansas, in my opinion, and I'm sure that I'll have plenty of people that will back me on that, is a top 10 coach in America right now. He's got his team to the Elite Eight the last 2 years. He took a Nevada team to the Elite Eight prior to that. So he's one hell of a coach. But hey, that doesn't mean they're going to win every game. That doesn't mean they're automatically, we should take them because they've been to the last two Elite Eights. We're going against a point spread, and we're going with the information that's in front of us. And again, it's our opinion and nobody else's. So in any event, Jesse, tell the folks what you may have coming up this week, how you've been doing, and where you prefer they find you. I'm assuming that would be jesseshule.com.
Well, Ross, last night my 12-1 NHL run became a 12-2 NHL run. And my clients are suffering through that 12-2 run. But you can find my NHL picks and my Sweet 16 picks and all my picks with all sports at jesseshule.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Jesse Shule, and you can follow me on YouTube at Jesse Shule Picks.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I mentioned yesterday to you off air, it says, when we lose games, these guys are all over us on these free pick segments. Yet, now that we're winning, the glaring weakness for all of us is our pronunciation of names, teams, and we're not we don't research enough because we don't know that Gonzaga and Northwestern advanced to the second round in 2017 against Gonzaga. What's that got to do with us picking a game against the spread in 2023? So we do bring up stuff like that with talking points. I was a little indecisive with the Northwestern not knowing if they've ever been to this second round, because sometimes talking points happen and they're not pre-rehearsed, okay? And they're not. It's something that comes up in the course of our conversations here, Jesse. So we just chime in a little bit, and boy, oh boy, you folks are tough on us. We appreciate all of you. Anyway, those of you who haven't subscribed, please take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. No strings attached. You're just privy to all of our winning information we provide for you on the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. You're also privy to all our mispronunciations of names and schools. Xavier is the name of that school, not Xavier. So I want to get that clear, and it's Arkansas and not Arkansas. So we'll go from there. And anyway, until the next time, for Jesse Shule and Ross Benjamin, we'd like to wish each and every one of you folks all the very best. Take care and God bless.